All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Village Board meeting to order on Monday, April 1st, 2019. And ask you if you would please rise and join the Village Board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Sidor.
Here.
Trustee Scaletta.
Here.
Trustee LaBedz.
Here.
Trustee Padavani.
Here.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Here.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Here.
Trustee Baldino.
Here.
Trustee Blackwood.
Here.
President Hayes.
Here. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, and the first set of minutes is from the Village Board meeting from March 18, 2019. Are there any changes or passes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Blackwood, seconded by Trustee Scaletta. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And next, the minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting from that same evening. Any changes or passes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee Sidor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we move on to the approval of the accounts payable, and I call on Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd move approval of the warrant register with a check date of March 30th, 2019 in the amount of $1,110,072.93.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Rosenberg, second by Trustee Scaletta. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta.
Yes.
Trustee Padavani.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
Trustee Sidor.
Yes.
Trustee Blackwood.
Yes.
Trustee Baldino.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Next, under recognitions and presentations, we have a presentation tonight by NICOR regarding the downtown gas main replacement. Mr. Recklouse, do you have any comments about this?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. As we've stated at previous meetings, there will be a number of construction projects underway this coming year in our downtown area. These projects include village sidewalk, stormwater, and crosswalk work, NICOR gas main work, and state work on Northwest Highway. The village is going to be holding open house meetings for downtown residents who are interested in the various projects at 7:30 p.m. on April 8th, and 2 meetings for downtown business owners at 8 a.m. on Wednesday the 3rd and 1:30 p.m. on April 8th for businesses. Staff has presented these projects, as you know, on the village portions of the project to the village board at a previous meeting. We wanted to give the village board the opportunity to hear about the NICOR portion of the project prior to the commencement of the work. And this evening we have representatives of NICOR present to do so, and I believe Mr. Shirley is going to be introducing them.
Thank you, Manager Recklouse. Briefly before I introduce NICOR, what I'd like to do is have 2 of our downtown liaisons, Bill Oakley and Patrick Smith, stand up. These 2 gentlemen are going to be the liaisons between the businesses and residents and all the projects that are going on downtown, but primarily NICOR. So they'll be meeting with NICOR weekly, giving updates to businesses. They will be at the meetings later this week and next week and be introduced to the business and owners and residents at that time. But I wanted everyone to see them. If anyone has any questions, they're going to stick around until after NICOR's presentation. We also have some other staff here that is familiar with our downtown sewer project, our paver brick project, our mid-block crosswalk projects. So we have people here in case there are questions from the board or from the audience after the NICOR presentation. With that, I'd like to introduce Margie Sheeman from NICOR, and she's going to make the presentation tonight.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
And thank you very much. Good evening, President Hayes, Madam Clerk, and village trustees. My name is Margie Sheeman. I lead the Community Affairs Department at NICOR Gas. And I'm going to start by saying I'm pleased to be back home. I was born at Northwest Community Hospital, grew up on Olive Street near Wilkie Road, right at the corner of Olive and Wilkie, and went to Patton School in my early years. So we very much appreciate the opportunity to come here to talk to you about investing in Illinois, which is Nicor Gas's infrastructure modernization program, and to tee up and to explain the project that's going to be starting soon in the downtown area, basically north of George to Eastman and east of Mitchell to Pine. But let me begin by giving a quick overview of okay, it's not advancing. Let's see if it's on. How about there? Let me begin by just giving a really quick overview of Nicor Gas. We've gone through a lot of change in the last 7 years. In fact, we've been acquired twice. First by AGL Resources in 2011, and then AGL Resources was acquired in July of 2016 by Southern Company. Southern Company is an all-electric company, or was until they acquired a gas operation. They were interested in learning the dynamics of owning a gas operation business because they generate a lot of their electricity using our product. So in addition to Nicor Gas, and we will continue to be called Nicor Gas, our branding has changed a little bit. You can see the logo is what Frank is wearing on his shirt. For gas operations, Southern Company and AGL Resources are both based in Atlanta, Georgia. And we have gas ops in Georgia, Virginia, and Tennessee. And then Southern Company also owns Georgia Power, Alabama Power, and Mississippi Power. But now to kind of take a deeper dive on Nicor Gas, we have 2.2 million customers, and if you look at that darker gold area, that's our service footprint. We have a non-contiguous area of our service footprint that hugs the Mississippi River, but we serve 2.2 million customers in 650 communities. We own, operate, and maintain 34,000 miles of underground natural gas distribution system in a 17,000 square mile area. We are the largest natural gas utility company in the state of Illinois. So what is investing in Illinois? In short, it's an accelerated infrastructure modernization program. And what it's allowing us to do is to modernize our infrastructure to enhance safety and reliability of our system. And the Natural Gas Consumer Safety and Reliability Act that was passed by the Illinois legislature in 2013 is the law that provides the state's natural gas utilities, utility companies with the mechanism to recover more real-time the investments under this accelerated infrastructure program. So the types of eligible investments under investing in Illinois are we're able to replace hundreds of miles of aging natural gas pipelines. We're replacing storage, compression, and gas conditioning equipment. We have a very robust natural gas storage facility that allows us to supplement the gas that we deliver during the winter months to keep prices more in check. And then replacing regulator stations, valves, and other facilities to establish overpressure protection of our system. And project prioritization is based on two things as was prescribed by the law. And the first is our distribution integrity management program. We risk rank our pipe. And so that's to say that we're getting rid of the worst first. And then coordination with our communities. Because this is a 10-year program and we want to make sure that we're not opening up newly paved roads and that we can get in ahead of gas and sewer work and maybe even share trenches. That's where that becomes important. And so since Nicor Gas began this program in December 2014, we've replaced approximately 600 miles of aging gas main and more than 88,000 natural gas service lines. Those are the lines that connect residents and businesses to the main lines. And in 2019, we're on target to replace approximately 135 miles of gas main and about 15,000 service lines. So what are the benefits of investing in Illinois? First and foremost is safety and reliability. There's improved customer convenience. We're not just moving meters from inside customers' homes and to outside, but we also expect fewer trouble calls with a more modern system, and that's to say that you're not going to see us as much. And then finally, upgrading the pressure on the system allows us to more easily meet capacity demands. So if there's an existing customer in Arlington Heights wishing to increase load on the system, or if you're looking to attract a new business, we have a better ability to serve. Additional benefits include, strengthening the Illinois economy. New business development is spurred by an improved, modernized infrastructure. Economic Development 101 will tell you that modern infrastructures attract business prospects to communities. Increased business activity driven by heightened demand for goods and services. We're ordering more pipe, more fittings, more materials in general during the course of this project. And then job creation. Not only is Nicor Gas hiring more employees, but our contractors are hiring, and we're using more vendors and suppliers than ever. So now I'd like to talk about the impacts to our customers, your residents. If a property is going to be affected by our project work, customers will be contacted in the form of a letter, a newsletter, door hangers, face-to-face communications. An important safety message is that all of our contractors and employees have Nicor Gas issued ID cards and will present them if requested. Nicor Gas and NPL, and you're going to be hearing from the boots on the ground pretty quick. Frank and Arnie are going to be talking a little bit more about the project specifics. But Arnie is with NPL, and the photo on the bottom right shows what an NPL vehicle will look like, and their logoing, and then of course the Nicor Gas logoing. And I believe we have helping at the end, toward the end of the project, UMI is going to be helping with the cross ties to get our customers then connected to the new main. But if a customer is ever suspicious about somebody posing as Nicor Gas that they think is, fibbing, then we ask them not to let them in their homes and to contact. We have an 800 number, 888-NICOR for you, or 888-642-6748. We want customers to definitely call, and our customer service representatives can confirm whether or not we're doing project in the given area. But our hope is that the communications in advance of the project work will allay such issues. The costs associated with investing in Illinois are recovered through a cost-controlled adjustment on customer bills. And the adjustment is a percentage of delivery charges, and it's 4%. It's an average of 4% over the 10 years. And the delivery charges make up approximately 1/3 of the bill. The commodity and taxes make up 2/3 of the bill. So the adjustment first started appearing on bills in March of 2015, and is shown on the bill as the qualified infrastructure charge. And you can't see it very well here, and maybe on your laptops you can see them better. You can see it better. But this is my bill, actually, from this month. And the amount changes from month to month based on a customer's natural gas consumption and the amount of investments that we make through the program. So you'll see that there are actually 2 line items on the bill with qualified infrastructure charge. If you read the law, that's the Qualified Infrastructure Program, or QIP, is what the program is named from a legal perspective. But very few bills are a perfect month. And so most bills have, are billed in over 2 months charges, which is why there are 2 line items. Now, it's important to note that all customers who are impacted, or all customers are subject to the adjustment on their bills, not just customers in impacted areas. And the impact for the average residential customer bill has averaged less than $2 a month. Finally, I just wanted to share a couple of communications pieces so that you can see how we're communicating with the impacted public. We're also working on a press release so that the non-impacted public in Arlington Heights and the adjacent areas will be aware of our project work. I do have a copy of that newsletter with you, and there's copies in the back for those in the audience who wish to see it. It's also on our website under Work in Your Neighborhood. And the image on the right-hand side is a typical door hanger in case a customer is not home when we come by. And generally, if the customer has an inside meter, we're going to need to gain access to their home twice during the course of the project. once at the beginning of the project to identify where the inside meter would be moved outside, and then at the end of the project when we have to cross-tie or we have to tie into the new system where we have to shut gas off to customers' properties. So now I'm going to turn it over to Frank Tanzillo. He's Superintendent of Customer Operations at Nicor Gas, and Arnie Albrecht, who's General Superintendent at NPL.
Thanks, Margie. Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to get into too much detail on the project here. We started work today, as you see on the plan sheet, at sheet 10 with work on Minor. We started work over there because there's a piece of it that gets on Northwest Highway, and you guys have a paving project. I'm getting ready to start, I believe, the 15th of April. So we moved in to do that piece first. That way we could get our work done, be out of the way. That way we don't impact any of the paving work. We'll already have our work completed. Our plan then is to move down to Sigwalt. We've got a 4-inch plastic gas main that's going to run on Sigwalt from Evergreen to Vale, and then run north. We run north up to Wing Street and connect in. That's about 3,000 feet of 4-inch plastic pipe. We'll be tackling that first. Once we get that piece in and get it live, we've got additional pieces of main that will go in on Dunton, on Evergreen, and then on Campbell. We'll be directional boring all this pipe in to minimize the impacts with all the streetscape and whatnot that we have in town. We will have to dig spot holes for any time we cross utilities. We will have to dig some holes where our tie-in points are. Like I said, we'll have to leave in our tie-in points where we start and till we get to where we finish. That way we can liven the gas main up when we have the whole segment in. Once we get that done, we've got our landscape contractor in the loop. We'll fill out our associated tickets and get him in there to start our restoration. We've got approximately, 8 weeks of main, Arnie?
Yes.
About 8 weeks worth of work on the main and probably 4 to 6 weeks worth of installing the gas services to all the local businesses in this area. Once we get the main in, we'll start the services, and once the services are in, we won't wait till we're finished, but then United Meters, who Margie mentioned earlier, they'll be doing the cross ties. That's the physical work from connecting the service, which will have a service riser coming up out of the ground. They'll do the piping, putting in the new meter, and then tying it into the piping inside the buildings. We've been in discussions with public works staff on brick for the downtown area. We'll probably be ordering a couple truckfuls, if not more, of brick to replace the areas that we're gonna have to excavate out in case the existing brick has deteriorated due to salt. We'll have fresh brick on hand that we could replace in any of these brick paved sidewalk areas. NPL's crew will have additional staff for this downtown project since there will be more work to be done with keeping pedestrian traffic and street traffic in control. That way we'll have flaggers out there for the street traffic, and we'll also make sure there's people out there putting sidewalk closed signs or barricading off areas of the sidewalk that need to be barricaded off. We're gonna do our best to leave access at all times on the sidewalk. If by chance we can't use one side of the sidewalk, we will have signage showing people to cross to the other side of the street at the corners. That way they could go across to the other side, get to where they need to go and cross back. Open for any questions.
Let me just ask one question. I know you, Margie, talked a little bit about perhaps residents being concerned about someone coming, knocking on their door and making sure they're an ICOR resident. This project for Arlington Heights just focuses on the downtown area. So I just wanted to clarify for those in the audience and those watching at home that you're not doing any work in the residential neighborhoods as part of this project. Is that right? Other than the residents downtown,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you're
we've
not
got
going
the
out into the
piece.
neighborhoods.
Yeah, we've got the piece, I don't know if you have any residents on Eastman. We've got 2 pieces on Eastman that we're going to be doing. I didn't go out there to check if that's residential or if that's business.
I imagine there may be a few single-family homes mixed in this group, but most of it is focused on the downtown area.
That's correct, Mayor Hayes, but we just did get a NICOR permit request for a large residential area, similar program east of St. James in that residential area there. So there is some residential single-family work that's going to be done. We have not issued the permit yet, but we received it about a week ago. So this project here that we're concentrating on is the downtown. There may be a handful of single-family residences, but most are multifamily. But just to your point, there is other work going to be happening in town by NICOR that hasn't been permitted yet that'll be up in some of the single-family residential areas.
Okay.
I believe you guys were given a copy. This was the original newsletter that went out to the addresses affected by our work. We sent that out before we completed what Margie called the spotting. That was getting in all these premises, seeing where the existing gas meters are, where they could be relocated to if need be. All the people affected have already gotten this. There's copies at the back table for anyone in here that needs to grab one.
Okay. Trustee Scaletta, do you have a question?
I do. So this is great that you're sending this out. So the next step is going to be a door hanger?
The next step is we're gonna be installing the gas main and then the gas services. Once the gas services are in, United Meters will be reaching out to the affected businesses or residents and scheduling an appointment with all those addresses to do the actual cross tie. When they do the cross tie, they'll have to shut the gas off for anywhere from an hour to 2-3 hours. Any businesses that are affected, we just did one recently in another town with a Burger King that opened at 6 a.m. So we made sure with their staff that someone was there at 5 a.m. We had a crew go out there. That way we can do the work we needed to do, have that gas live inside the house or inside the Burger King. That way they were ready to go when they opened at 6 a.m. So United Meters crews will come in, do the piping, and then they will relight all the natural gas appliances inside the house. Furnaces, hot water heaters, whatever the businesses or residences have.
Okay. The reason I ask is that it's going to be quite a challenge and when you have multifamily buildings of communicating, number one, and number two, getting access. So are you then so if I lived in an apartment building in the downtown or a condo building, are you working with the property managers and they're working with the residents?
We try to work with the property managers if we have a name and number on file who the property managers are. All the addresses in these multi apartments or townhomes have received this. We will try to schedule with the property managers. Sometimes these buildings have like a central heat, and maybe they have cooking gas is the only thing that they're being metered, where it's just a stove. We try to schedule to get everyone in the building all at one time. We do have a process, if need be, where we will hang a blue door hanger, blue tag on that address. That basically shows that we connected the gas, but we have to shut off that individual unit. That unit has to be shut off. There's that 188 NICOR for you number that they could call, and an operations person will be out to relight whatever appliance they have at that time.
Okay. And same will happen with the office buildings as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then have you worked with staff on getting our brick specs so that you're putting down the same bricks that we have?
Yes, we've been in discussion. I think your current brick is not currently being made, but the manufacturer, the plant has been sold to another manufacturer who they have said that they can fire up that plant to create these bricks if we need it. So we've been in discussions. I've been in discussions with Chris. We actually have an in-house meeting tomorrow to discuss it, to try to figure out how much we think we're going to need, and we'll be in touch with Chris to work everything out with that.
So Trustee Scaletta, to that point, the brick in the areas where NICOR is going to be working is our old brick. It's not the new enhanced face brick. They are different dimensions, the two bricks. So because the concrete ribbons are at certain dimensions, the newer brick, the enhanced face brick, will not fit back into the spaces where NICOR is going to work. So we had to make a special order. NICOR will be buying the old brick, and they had to run a special run for us to get the right color because they do not make it anymore, but they made it for us this one time. So we have some in stock that they will replace. So it'll be newer brick, but the old style, and then our paver brick program will begin to work from south to north and put in the extra concrete bands, put in the proper bands on the sides at the proper dimensions so we can put in the new enhanced face bricks as we move through town on that program. But that's not going to be part of the NICOR restoration. They're not going to put in the new brick or any of the increased concrete banding or anything like that.
Okay, and I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that there's coordination on their end of making sure that we get what we need. And then the last thing is, you're aware that we have lots of events in the downtown. You're going to do everything you can to avoid creating any problems for our residents in these events?
Yes, we've talked to village staff. I've got a list here of 5 different events. We've got a Memorial Day parade, July 4th parade, Promenade of Art, Sounds of Summer, and Main and Taste events with dates. They've given us dates and locations and where all this is, so we can coordinate. We've been in touch with staff. Once we get this project rolling, we're going to try to have a weekly progress meeting so we could discuss where we're at, where we're going, make sure we don't have any problems with scheduling and ending up in a place where any of the other village projects or any of these events are happening.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Trustee Sidor.
Just very quickly, Margie, you mentioned that the NICOR people will have their IDs on, but you got a bunch of subcontractors working with you as well. Will they all have a specific ID? Everything from United Meter to NPL to everybody?
They're just like Frank's, but it'll say contractor on it.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll say contractor, I think at the bottom, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it says contractor at the bottom.
Okay.
They're supposed to either have them on a lanyard or a lot of times they have a clip. They'll go on the waistband with a.
I think the biggest concern I have are the meter guys who are going to actually be near the residences or businesses or in the multifamily buildings, that are actually on the premises. So make sure that there's,
Correct.
Good
And
security.
They've got the 188 number. Our supervisor, Tim Hennigan, his name and number are up there if they want to call Tim. They could call Tim to verify that, hey, I've got
Okay.
a guy at the door. Is this legit? Yes or no? And he can verify that also.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mayor.
or our general number, or worst case scenario, call the police.
Trustee
We
Rosenberg.
have a great police department.
Yeah, have the police come and double check. I mean, we prefer that. We don't want to have any situations arise
Understood.
where there's people posing as utility workers.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
Okay, Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think one of the big concerns that we talked about when we met with staff earlier was the safety of the residents. And so that's, I think, one of the primary things that we're concerned about as far as potential trips and falls and, areas not being sufficiently barricaded or designated off limits. So we just want to make sure that you're, on board with that, and supposedly the staff is going to coordinate and go over what happens every night, I guess, to make sure that all those areas have been covered sufficiently and blocked off accordingly. And so you're well aware of that, I assume. So
Yes, correct. Safety is our number one core value at NICOR Gas. So that is first and foremost is the people, pipeline, and public on what we're going to protect. We'll be using signage. We'll be using plates over holes. We don't have any pictures. We've been using in some other towns. What is it? That's like a plastic.
It's a plastic plate that's non-slip.
Yeah, it's like a non-slip plastic plate that we can put over the over the holes. Anywhere where there's a lip or a trip hazard, we'll be using cold patch to ramp up. That way there isn't a 1 inch step or anything we have to worry about people tripping or access with wheelchairs or anything like that.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Did you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
All right.
I just wanted to thank Trustee Scaletta. I think that was you brought up a great point about multi-unit buildings where we may have a master meter and not every unit is metered. We will work with property owners to communicate with those residents.
All right, well, thank you very much. Anything else from the staff? All right,
Mayor, I have one.
Trustee Sidor.
And this is going to be rough for our town, but Pat Eves in the back there, she was awesome. I just want to say publicly that one of our restaurants was trying to open. They found out they needed a larger gas meter. Pat Eves, stand up in the back there. She and others made it happen, right? So thank you. Hey Nani, if you visited Hey Nani yet, she helped it open on time. So thank you, Pat, and thank you, NICOR.
Thank you.
Yeah, we thank NICOR for all the great work that they do for our community and other communities, and we wish you good luck during this construction season.
Thanks. We look forward to it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we move on then in the agenda to citizens to be heard, and I have no blue cards for anyone who wants to address an item not on the agenda. Is that correct, Becky?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll move on then to the consent agenda. And is there any board member who wishes to remove an item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, any members of the audience who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, any members of the board who wish to vote no or pass on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve the consent agenda by Trustee Tinaglia, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Blackwood?
Yes.
Trustee Padavani?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Sidor?
Yes.
Trustee Baldino?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Move on then to new business, and we do have two items tonight. The first is request for sign variations from Duncan Baskin Robbins, located at 105 West Dundee Road. Is the petitioner present? Come on forward. And if you just introduce yourself for the record, please.
My name's Jennifer Thorstens, and I'm with MRV Architects, representing the owner of the property.
Okay, well, we've got your materials, and it's a unanimous recommendation from the Design Commission and staff. And so anything that you'd like to add in terms of what you're looking to do here?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward in what they said. We're just looking for an additional sign on the west side of the building. More of a logo, the DD that kind of represents the new Duncan image. And then the one sign on the tower, which is within the requirements.
So this location is adding Baskin-Robbins components.
Yeah, they're adding that
to the
second business to what's existing, so.
All right, any questions from the board? Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. So, question, this is kind of near my neighborhood, and just curious as to, is this a complete remodel job of the whole facility itself?
Yeah, the inside is pretty much completely gutted because they need to add the equipment line for the Baskin-Robbins. They'll be up doing the finishes in the seating area, and then the exterior will kind of be refaced to add the new Baskin product as well as the Duncan image upgrades. So.
From the standpoint of the drive-through will stay exactly the same?
That'll stay the same, yeah.
So I had asked the question of staff about the ground sign. Do you know if they are planning to change it or not?
They're planning on replacing the face at this time to add the Baskin portion, but it will stay still as existing.
So just hold that thought for a minute. So Charles, from the standpoint of when the recommendation was made so that the sign be updated, was the intention just to do the face or to replace the whole sign?
Well, staff's initial recommendation was to, as they're rebranding and redoing the whole building, was to improve the grand sign and change it to a monument sign. The Design Commission recommended that they just upgrade the sign, and it is a recommendation. They didn't make it a requirement, but just a recommendation that they consider that.
Okay. So the existing sign is in compliance right now or not?
It does, yes. Well, it meets as far as we're aware, it meets the height and size requirements for a 16-foot tall grand sign. The banner on the bottom on this image is not allowed, but the sign faces, so long as they don't exceed the square footage, would be allowed. So as we understand it from the petitioner right now, they're just planning on refacing it. They would need to submit a permit for that, and we'll verify the square footage. I think the Design Commission, as well as staff, were recommending that they kind of upgrade, even if it's a pole sign, it's a chance to upgrade it and improve it. They're gutting the entire building and putting a whole new facade on the building. Seemed to make sense to upgrade the sign as well.
Summer Sorensen, is the intent just to change the top part of the sign where it says Dunkin' Donuts and add Baskin Robbins?
Yeah,
or-
the actual panel will come out and the new one will go in that will have both the Dunkin' and the Baskin signage.
Okay. As far as parking and things like that, that'll stay the same?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I know there's always difficulty, cars seem to have trouble getting in and out of that space there, turning on in and out to Dundee Road there, so. Okay, that's all my questions.
Trustee Sidor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad we're not making you change it to a monument sign. I think this costs you less money. Always try to make things easier. Maybe you'd like, as an architect, maybe you'd like them to change it to a monument sign. But I think this is fine. I don't have an issue with this, and I would move approval on this, Mayor. Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Sidor, second by Trustee Scaletta. Any further questions or comments? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations,
Thank
good luck.
you.
We have one other item under new business, and that's a request for preliminary plat of subdivision rezoning comprehensive plan amendment at 1400 West Thomas Street. Is the petitioner present? Okay. And just introduce yourselves if you would.
Good evening, how are you?
Good to see you.
How you doing? My name is Marcy Glickert, and my husband is Mark Heidkamp. We are here seeking subdivision on 1400 West Thomas Street, in addition to rezoning from RE to R3 and the comprehensive plan amendments from single-family detached estates to single-family detached. I have been born and raised in Arlington Heights, and we own the home at 1510 North Harvard, which is just north of the subject property. I'm proud to say that since 1927, my family, the Glickerts, have resided, have been, and are still business owners in Arlington Heights for over 92 years. We are not here as builders, contractors, or developers. We are here as residents seeking subdivision and rezoning on the property we own at 1400 West Thomas, against the recommendation of the Plan Commission, but with the support of village staff, and will show that there has been precedence. For me to explain this properly, I'm going to have to give you a little bit of background, and I was hoping that one of the slides could be put up. It's the slide on the subdivision in the vicinity. It's got 4 boxes. Yeah, that's it. Okay. 35 years ago, in 1984, I purchased the property located at 1510 North Harvard, which is from the top of the blue box, the second part of the blue box, which was the first subdivided parcel in the neighborhood. I moved one of 3 homes that were located on the property at 1520 North Arlington Heights Road to 1510 North Harvard to make way for our new funeral home. 1510 North Harvard was actually the backyard of 1401 North Linwood, which is the top box of the blue box. Both lots were zoned R3. Since 1977, 2 parcels, which are corner lots along Harvard Avenue on the west side, and 1 parcel on Thomas Street, another corner lot, have been subdivided and are zoned R3. All the homes on the east and west side of Harvard have been rezoned R3. And to my knowledge, prior to the comprehensive plan being implemented, all lots in the subdivision had either R3 or R1 zoning. In December of 2015, we purchased the property of 1400 West Thomas. Our son, daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren moved into the home. In December 2017, the home suffered a devastating electrical fire and has been since uninhabitable. We met with the village staff and followed all the procedures required to subdivide and rezone our property. We met with the conceptual plan committee and were given indication by Lynn Jensen to proceed to the next step. We consulted with the village staff on what engineering contractors were familiar with Arlington Heights engineering and zoning and contracted with one of them. We invested into engineering plans, surveyor plans, setback surveys on Thomas Street, letters to our neighbors, neighborhood meetings, signage, numerous hours of village staff and our time, and spent thousands of dollars. Our neighbors have no objection to the project and are in favor of the project. We have received written village support and recommendation for approval on the project, only to be denied at the Plan Commission meeting due to the comprehensive plan. Mr. Green, who is one of the members of the board, referenced that he was instrumental in the development of the comprehensive plan, and it was his vision and his preference to keep larger lots, but we strongly disagree. After the meeting, they then told us that they highly recommended that we proceed to the village board. Our initial plans are to rebuild the home on the corner at 1400 West Thomas and eventually develop the second lot in the future. We feel by subdividing the lot, it would make Harvard Avenue more cohesive with the east and west side. The 2 lots would be 100 by 100, which are more than adequate size for the requested zoning of R3. The neighborhood would be enhanced and additional tax dollars to the community. Again, there is precedence at the other lots. The other lots have been subdivided. And we do have village support. We did come prepared at the Plan Commission meeting based on the approval of village staff for preliminary and final plat approval, only to be denied. So we're here asking for your approval today, and we want to thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, do you have a presentation on this or just questions?
I can just quickly walk through the area and then answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay.
So just going back quickly, this area is designated on the comprehensive plan as RE, which is the estate designation that occurred around 2004, 2005. Staff, when we looked at this, we did take a look at the area, and there are these 4 subdivisions starting from 1977, where the lots, especially on the west side of Harvard, were subdivided. Each of these subdivisions on Harvard, while they did provide the engineering plans for public improvements, they did not install those public improvements. And each of these subdivisions did sign an estoppel agreement to not object should the village pursue a special assessment to make public improvements in this area. So when this was discussed with engineering and public works, there were concerns about some drainage and flooding, but based upon these other subdivisions, it was felt that an estoppel agreement would be the appropriate mechanism to allow for improvements in the future if needed. Should point out that it's been a long time since the village has done a special assessment, so that may or may not occur, but on the west side of Harvard in particular, there are no curb and gutter, there's no sidewalk, there's no street lights on the west side of Harvard. So to install them on one lot and then not have that installed on the remainder didn't seem appropriate. We did take a look at the square footages of the lots, and the area with the dashed line, which is zoned R3, those lots are about, on average, 9,900 square feet. The proposed lots would be about 10,000 square feet. Obviously, they're about half the size of what would be allowed in the R1 and, in particular, RE districts. So just moving forward to the drainage, there is a concern that Engineering Public Works have about the engineering plans and the fact that there's a potential for sheet flooding potential into Harvard. So they would be requiring, if this were to be approved, a swale to be constructed and installed, and then to be connected to the storm sewer in Thomas. So there are conditions that require this if the board were to consider that. However, the Plan Commission felt that this area should stay as large lot RE, and they unanimously recommended denial. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Charles, if you go back to the big overlay with the blue and the colors and the prior
Yes, I'll go back right now.
prior subdivisions. Yeah, that one is good. All of the prior subdivisions that were allowed were before the RE overlay district was created. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And so, I tend to agree with the Plan Commission's analysis that that really is not good precedent for what you're trying to do here, because that was all created before this RE overlay was enacted. And so if you just look at that, the diagram there with the big green lots, that's exactly what the intention of that overlay district was to do, create large lots. And so I don't have a particular objection with what you're trying to do here, but if we allowed it for you, then we'd have to continue to allow it within that whole real estate RE district. And so it essentially...
I don't think that the way that the other RE are laid out, that there is any lot that could be doing exactly what we're trying to do. It's a corner lot, and the way the house sits on the lot right now, the backyard is actually this, you see the side yard, it's a side yard that you see from Harvard. So you really don't have any privacy. If you look at the other lots in the neighborhood, you could not do that. You couldn't subdivide those that way. There is no way to subdivide those other lots. You couldn't put a house behind a house.
Charles, if you could just, I was a little surprised in terms of the staff's recommendation as well, in light of the creation of the RE overlay. And so if you could just explain the justification and address my concern.
Sure. And I do think there are other lots that could be subdivided, corner lots in particular. So I would think if this lot were to come in and try to do the same, the staff position would be different because it's in the middle of the neighborhood. We would probably recommend against that and uphold the RE zoning district. On Harvard, it was, we kind of debated it quite a bit at staff level, but we felt what had been done to the north, recognizing it was, quite a few years before the RE was created. That was probably the only location that we would expect to see or want to see a down zoning or up zoning to a higher intensity classification like R3. So that was the rationale for thinking. If it was, again, in the middle of the neighborhood, there are corner lots that probably could be subdivided. But they would be spot zoning, they would be isolated R3 sections. This is contiguous to existing R3. That was the basis of our recommendation and our thinking.
What other lots, just looking at what's depicted there, could be subdivided like this?
If you go further west and north, and I don't have an aerial that goes further out, many of the corner lots, these are approximately 20,000 square feet in size. Some of them are a little bit larger. So in theory, you could subdivide those corner lots and making 10,500 square foot lots. But again, they'd be in the middle of the neighborhood. There'd be no R3 around them. There would be spot zoning, and that definitely would be not in the spirit of the intent of the R3 to protect these larger neighborhoods and larger lot neighborhoods.
Okay. Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. Charles, you had a slide that had the dashed line on it that separated R3 from RE.
Let me see if I can find that. Okay, gotta go the other way, sorry.
There it is. So, Mayor Hayes, I tend to agree with you on your concern there, but I think this slide is what does it for me. As you drive down Harvard there, and you see how on the right-hand side it's all R3, and on the left-hand side or the west side, all but this lot are R3. All those homes face Harvard or the corners. And that one lonely little R3 that's off to the west there, that's in the sea of RE, as Charles pointed out, I would be not a proponent of doing that again. When was that done? What was the date on that one? It was quite a ways ago, like 97?
That was 1997, and actually staff recommended against that particular one.
So surprised. So that's I think the intent of how I interpret this. And for me, taking this corner lot and adding it to get rid of that little jog in the zoning district and making it contiguous for R3 makes a lot of sense. And I would not be in favor of doing this for any of the other lots over there. So anyone else thinking about it, forget about it.
Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you. I completely agree. You look at all the homes that are across the street from this parcel, and they are all on those size lots. It is all contiguous, and I agree. I wouldn't, mess around with the rest of the neighborhood. And I think if somebody came in on that one corner that Charles had referenced as a possibility of somebody wanting that I would be a no vote, because it is in the middle of the RE and not contiguous to the R3 like this one is. I think that this is really the perfect situation where I would be willing to do it, and so I'm supportive of the petitioner's request.
Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. I found it really interesting that the Plan Commission had a unanimous denial, because it doesn't happen very often. Because when I looked at this map with this, and I thought exactly the same as Trustee Scaletta and Trustee Tinaglia, that this is the one place that makes sense, because as you go, the other side is all R3. To the north, it's R3. And it just didn't make sense not to have this one also R3. So I drove around yesterday to see what it all would look like. And after doing that, it's still, I actually think it still is, I agree with the fellow trustees that it would be okay in this particular spot to go R3 rather than leave that as the RE designation. And I would agree that the other lots in the area and the subdivision should remain the way they are. I understand what the Plan Commission was saying in terms of, well, now if we change, we've done this overlay and we don't want to go back and then start, then it's the whole idea of it was to protect the bigger lots. But this is one place where it seems to make sense. So I'm supportive.
Trustee Sidor.
Thank you, Mayor. Second to last board meeting, I'm going to say I agree with staff. I just can't believe I'm saying this. Just teasing Charles. Thank you, Ms. Glickert Heidkamp, for coming forward and hopscotching with a denial. It's kind of dejecting, right? When you get a unanimous denial from a plan commission, you think all this money is being invested, all this time, all this, and you wonder why. But in this particular case, there's a election tomorrow. This looks like a redistricting map, like that they would do in the city of Chicago. The way they got that one little lot,
Little gerrymandering.
yeah, that's what it's looking like.
Springfield.
I'm, I don't know how this motion would work, but would I motion to approve?
Well, are there,
Subdivide?
staff, Charles, are there other issues that the Plan Commission didn't address because
Mayor,
they?
excuse me, point of order, I was wondering if I could make a motion to approve the subdividing of this lot based on what I've heard from the other.
I'm just wondering what the motion would be, because I think there
Oh.
were issues that the Plan Commission didn't address because they denied it.
These are the 10 conditions that staff recommended as part of the Staff Development Committee recommendation for approval. So they were not included in the motion because that was a motion for denial. So if the board wished to approve, the staff would recommend these conditions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to
Okay,
clarify.
so would you be in agreement, have you seen these? I
Yes, we
take
are.
it, and you are agreeable to these conditions?
Yes, we are.
All 10 of them?
Yes.
Okay, then my motion will stand, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay,
Second.
motion by trustee Sidor,
Thank you, Mayor.
second by trustee Baldino. All right, further questions or comments? Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you. So Charles, I don't know whether you can answer this, but, so the installation of the swale, is that in the middle of Harvard Avenue, or how does that?
No, it would be at the edge of their property and the right of way.
Okay. So that's, how far down does that go?
It goes from the northern edge. It's highlighted in green. I think that's
As far
green.
as the depth, though? I was
Oh,
curious.
the
as to
depth. Well, part of the requirement is for them to revise their engineering plans to provide new grading, so we can see the swale and have that reviewed by Engineering Public Works. So I don't know the exact depth of that.
Okay.
And then there would be an inlet at the end, the southern end, as shown on this exhibit, that would connect underground to the storm sewer in Thomas.
Okay. And Ms. Kluger, you're in agreement with doing this work?
Yes, we are.
Okay. That's fine.
All right, further questions? Trustee Scaletta.
So Charles, is swale a fancy word for ditch?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And so in order to build the first home, they would have to build the ditch or the swale all the way throughout the entire property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure know what I'm agreeing to.
If I can jump in, it's not possible to approve the work because the swale have to run past both properties. It would be required before you did any work to do it that way.
I'm in complete agreement. I want to make sure that what we're voting on is that would be provided before the first home was built.
Sure.
Or during construction of the first home.
Okay, trustee Rosenberg.
So to further that, so upon acceptance or upon us passing this tonight, does that work, so is the plan to construct a home right away, or?
The plan is to get the one home on the corner demolished, and then we'll fix it, put another home there and
Okay.
replace it. And then eventually, at some point, do the second home.
Okay. So upon completion of the demolition and prior to construction, then you would, I assume, do the swale work then?
Yes,
Okay.
on both lots.
Correct.
We would do that, yes.
Thank you.
Well, I am in support of the motion as well, just so you know. My concern was that I was on the board when we created this real estate, or RE overlay district, and I think there's a good rationale for it. It really allows us to maintain those large lots, and so my concern was that this would create a precedent for chipping away at that. But I'm comfortable that that will not be the case, and so I'm in support of the motion as well. So anything from the audience on this before we vote? Just come forward if you would. You have to come forward. If you just give us your name, if you would.
Hello, good evening. My name is Václav Valak, and I'm a resident, I'm a neighbor. And I want to just tell everybody that it would be a nice idea to divide it and make two houses. And I agree with here to doing that.
Okay, thank you.
They have my support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Right, there is no other new business, so we'll move on in the agenda to legal, and we do have a resolution conveying interest in property and authorizing the execution of a real estate contract for the property located at 112 North Belmont Avenue. And we have representatives from the Arlington Heights Memorial Library here to make a presentation. And Mike, you're going to have to explain who that is.
If I could make a couple of remarks.
Mr. Eckloss, I'm sorry.
No, it's right. As you all know, the village has owned the property located at 112 North Belmont for many years. The village operated the building as a teen center until 2010, and then leased it to other entities as a teen center through 2017. Since then, it's been vacant. When our tenant did not renew its lease at the end of 2017, the village began to explore alternative uses for the site. And the library approached us and indicated that they had interest in the site as a makerspace that would offer opportunities for residents and business owners to have access to a variety of specialized tools and equipment. Given we've obviously had a lot of discussion with the library over the past several months, and given the potential community benefits of this project and the fact that this type of use would support the village's own economic development goals of supporting and growing small business, the village staff believes that such a use is compatible with the village's own mission and that the property could be transferred directly to the library. The resolution before the village board this evening would authorize execution of a real estate contract with the Arlington Heights Memorial Library to convey the property to them. The library board approved this agreement at their March 19th meeting. And while I want to point out, while executing the agreement would convey the property to the library, the document calls for the sharing of any proceeds from the sale of the property for the next 10 years in the event that the library changes its mind and decides not to go forward with their plan. But tonight, Mike Driscoll, the executive director of the library, is going to be giving a brief presentation on the concept. And while I know the village board has seen this concept at previous meetings, this presentation may benefit residents watching at home. And after his presentation, Charles Perkins will also make some brief comments prior to answering any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Randy. Mike.
Thank you, trustees, Mayor Hayes, for allowing me to come forth tonight and discuss the opportunity to use the old library as a makerspace. We believe our concept is an opportunity for many audiences in the community and is a great use of the building. I want to talk a little bit about what a makerspace is. I've asked Socrates here to help me out. And then I've also handed off some examples to show you what can come out of a makerspace. A major component of our concept includes what's called a makerspace. Adding a makerspace to our list of services is something that's in our strategic plan that we recently completed. It's something that has been also successful in other libraries. So what is a makerspace? First and foremost, makerspace is a collaborative workspace where people can make things, whether it's for personal use, for their business, or gifts. Makerspaces provide room to spread out when you may not have tools to get the job done that you may not own, and the opportunity to network with people who have similar interests. From fine arts to DIY electronics to product prototyping, a good makerspace will have the tools and resources to help you with your projects from start to finish. It's a place to tinker, it's a place to learn, to share, and to network. A well-run makerspace fosters curiosity and collaboration, not just between staff and customers, but between the users of the makerspace themselves. STEM-focused training is a very common component of makerspaces, whether it's training on the equipment itself or broader topics like electronics and design. Makerspaces generally will have a robust catalog of training classes. While these classes are often run by makerspace staff, there are also opportunities for users themselves to share their experience and best practices with other members. A makerspace is also a great networking space for people that might have similar interests and hobbies. It can also be an incubator for small business. I have a couple of pictures here of other local library makerspaces. This one up here is Northbrook Library's Collaboratory, it's called. They opened about a year ago and have been very successful. This is the Indian Trails Public Library makerspace. It's called the Launchpad. They've been open for about 2 years now, and something we really like about their space is the communal seating. So it's similar to seating at a family-style restaurant, and if you've eaten at a family-style restaurant, you know that it's not unusual to strike up a conversation with people sitting next to you. So we think that this kind of environment can lead to a lot of interesting conversations and possibly inspiration. So I want to quickly mention the type of equipment that we would have in a makerspace. These are a couple of 3D printers shown on the screen right now. These are used heavily in rapid prototyping and can be found in schools, libraries, and commercial makerspaces. 3D printers use a plastic filament to create an item one layer at a time. And the items that you have and my couple examples up here were all created with 3D printers. The next tool that you'll commonly see in a makerspace is a laser cutter. Laser cutters are often used for cutting materials like wood and acrylics, but a well-calibrated laser cutter can also engrave incredibly small and detailed design and artwork. So some examples up here I thought were pretty interesting. The sushi, that is laser cut sushi. The seaweed was actually cut in a laser cutter. That lamp, the wood on the lamp was all cut with a laser cutter as well. This is an example of some of the detail that you could achieve with a laser cutter. It's a slower process, but the results can be incredible. You could use this type of equipment to create custom rubber stamps, stencils for painting, or even paper crafting. The sunglasses display up here was created with a laser cutter. So this example here is of a makerspace user using their local library to kickstart a small business. This is XO Paper Incorporated on Etsy. Candace started her custom laser cut banner shop using the laser cutter at the Northbrook Library's makerspace. Candace uses the laser cutter there to cut out these chipboard signs for holidays and special occasions. She has had a lot of success with her Etsy store, and I think it's a great example of how a makerspace can help to start a small business. Aside from the high-tech prototyping, makerspaces also cater to traditional fine arts and crafting. Many library makerspaces host sewing groups and quilters. You may find traditional sewing and embroidery machines, but also some more advanced equipment as well. Our concept includes a number of sewing machines, large work tables, embroidery machines, and a quilting machine. We already have the Northwest Suburban Quilters Guild that hosts monthly workshops at the library, so we do feel that there will be a lot of interest in this area. Some examples that I'm showing here are just sewing embellishments that you can do to a quilt or put branding on a logo for a uniform or something like that. The star there just kind of shows how the equipment fills in the logos. Another tool that would be used in the fine arts area of the makerspace is a vinyl cutter. So these work similar to a laser cutter, but instead of a laser burning materials, there's a small blade that actually cuts thinner materials like vinyl, cardstock, fabric, balsa wood, or heat transfer vinyl for using on an iron-on for shirts. These are a few examples on the screen right now of vinyl cutouts that someone used to spruce up their laptop. So another part of our concept, in addition to the makerspace and fine arts area, would be the addition of a commercial kitchen. The main focus of this space would be to expand our very popular culinary programming. We currently host culinary programming, however, we are limited to small appliance use, such as Instapots, or we do cold prep classes. Adding a kitchen could provide space for cooking classes, STEM programming for children, canning, safety tutorials, food photography, or information or training on acquiring licenses necessary to vend food. In addition to expanding programming, the kitchen space could be available for Arlington Heights residents and businesses to use. Customers could prep food on a larger scale for events. They could test recipes for prospective restaurants, or prepare food for a farmer's market. And to help support all of these areas, we would have some business support at the location to help young entrepreneurs or people wanting to start a business either develop their business or launch. So our initial plan includes being open 40 hours per week. This is based on the experience of other makerspaces and other libraries, and the experience that we've had at our own library utilizing our studios. A huge benefit of the space, separate from our library in this building, would be it addresses issues that other libraries have been struggling with, such as noise, odors throughout the library, and having an industrial space within a library environment. It's kind of a different environment than what would fit in our building. So we think this space would provide a great opportunity for the library and the community and bring something new to Arlington Heights. We have had 3 community meetings about this project, and it has been discussed at 4 open meetings with library trustees. We've received about 85% strong support and about 15% questions and concerns. The biggest issue has been parking, which we've been working with the Park District and village staff to address. We have received overwhelming support from the education sector and from the business community on our concept. So providing this resource to the community really breaks down the barrier for entrepreneurs to create a prototype of an idea with minimal initial investment. The initial investment really keeps a lot of great ideas from coming to light. So having this resource would allow residents to go from an idea to a prototype within hours instead of weeks or months, and initial costs would be much lower. Overall, this facility would provide something for everyone, we believe. It would give the high school student a leg up going into college. It would give the college student experience and expertise going into a career. And it would give the entrepreneur the ability to turn an idea into reality. And we believe that if we give our community the tools, they will do amazing things. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anything further from the staff? Mr. Ecklas or Mr. Perkins?
Yes, just want to quickly walk through some of the community outreach, talk about the zoning of the property for everybody's benefit, and I know there'll probably be some questions on parking, so I'll touch on that. So we have had several neighborhood community meetings. Starting in January last year, we did an extensive mailing to all the neighbors in the area, as well as various social service agencies. At that meeting, there was a general consensus from those in attendance that they would prefer to keep the building. They'd like to see the building reused. We had talked about issuing an RFP and having other potential uses, such as a tear down and building 2 homes there. There was definitely a consensus from the neighborhood that they'd like to see the building preserved and the heritage that the building has as being the library many years ago. After that, the library reached out to the village, and we had a series of meetings, and then both the village and the library hosted a joint community meeting in February, and then the library also had 2 additional community meetings in March, as well as they've discussed it at their public library board meetings as well. So parking is always a topic. This is a building that's a little over 8,000 square feet with only 6 parking spaces on site. So any use that would go in here will generate more demand than can be accommodated on site. The property is zoned PL, public lands, so it can only be used by a public agency without coming back in and rezoning. So the protection of the village here with selling it is if the library were to sell it in 10, 20 years' time, anyone else, if they weren't a public entity, would need to rezone the property, and the parking situation for those future uses could be reevaluated. The property, when it was a teen center, did receive a parking variation of 50 spaces. Under every scenario that we've analyzed parking, the parking demand would be significantly less than that. So we've looked at a straight-up library per code has a requirement for 9 spaces. Looking at the maximum occupancy of each room as proposed by the library would have a maximum parking demand of 33 spaces. Again, there's only 6 spaces on site. We have studied with engineering and public works the Belmont Avenue, and this exhibit north is to the right, so I apologize about that. But it is showing how parking could be accommodated on the east side of Belmont. Currently, parking is allowed on the 2-hour parking south of Wing, which is south of the tennis courts, but it's signed no parking north of Wing. We would not stripe the spaces. This is just illustrative to show how much parking could be accommodated. And we feel about 14 vehicles could park on that north section of Belmont. To do this, it would require going through our normal process of notifying the property owners, and an ordinance would have to be considered by the village board, but that is an option to have spaces close by the new makerspace. We also took a look at the site itself, and if reversing the flow of traffic, right now it's a one-way site coming in one way from the north off Minor and circulating around the building. If the site is reversed and the angled parking is shifted from by the building to the west side of the parking lot, you lose a bit of green space here and can add a couple of parking spaces here, but you pick up some green space here. We think we can squeeze in a handicap space here and put a sidewalk to come to the handicap ramp. Right now the handicap space is parked here next to the building, so anybody with a disability has to walk along or go along the sidewalk and around to get to the ramp. So we feel we can get between 11 and 12 spaces on this site. It would have to be fully dimensioned with a survey to verify that, but that would pick up quite a bit of more parking on the property itself. The library has also obtained an agreement, a written letter from the Park District to be able to park in this existing parking area for their employees. That's about 0.14 of a mile away from the front door of the Belmont building. We have also looked at, there's a gravel area south on Belmont, if I can get the mouse to work. Yeah, right here. There's a gravel area. We've done in this kind of inset a little concept where you could pick up 50 odd spaces. Again, that's probably about 300 feet from the front door of the building. We feel that's kind of a last resort. You hate to take up green space when there are other parking options. There's also parking on Douglas, which is about 0.13 of a mile away. And there's 4-hour parking currently on Minor Street. So I just want to kind of overview a little bit on the parking and zoning. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Charles. And Mike, this is a real exciting opportunity. I think we thank the library for the creative thinking once again. They're really a leader. You guys have just been tremendous in terms of thinking outside the box. And I know you've got a large group here tonight from your elected representatives and staff and supporters. And so we can't thank you enough for bringing this idea forward. And we're very happy, I think, to partner with you on it. So with that, any questions from the board? Trustee Scaletta.
So just to be clear, we're not approving anything other than this agreement tonight to
Correct.
give the property away, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just, because there's obviously a lot of questions in the presentation. I mean, I think this presentation, each time you give it to us, you give us even more information, so thank you for always improving upon your presentation and the details you provide us. But I just want to make sure that it's clear to everybody out there that we're not approving it as we've seen it tonight because we don't have anything official.
If I could, the only thing that would require board approval of the different concept we talked about would be if we were going to change the ordinance to allow parking on the street and so forth. But in terms of them being able to go forward and operate the facility, they would have the ability to do that under existing ordinances. They'd obviously have to go through permits and so forth to do the work, but there's no further board approval required beyond the conveyance of the property unless we change parking rules.
Okay, so who's going to have the conversation with the library about a concept of having a kitchen where it's going to be shared and what the cleanliness standards are and how you achieve that and everything?
The health department.
Okay, so that'll happen through the health department. It'll never come before us.
Correct. Just as it would, with a restaurant space or anything else, they're certainly going to be subject to a lot of village regulations, but there's nothing that would require board approval.
Okay, thank you.
Based on current concepts that we've heard from.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. Well, I think as Trustee Scaletta said, this is, you've been here a number of times. You've got an incredible crew. Everybody's been working super hard on it. I'm, for one, really excited to see this happen. I hope you can get it going right away. I think the parking issues will get solved. There's a lot of good ideas here that Charles put together and you guys have already been talking about. I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this when it's appropriate.
I would second.
All right, motion by trustee Tinaglia, second by trustee Padavani. Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. It's a great presentation, and I think this is a really exciting concept. The one comment that I have for staff in terms of the parking is in the conceptual idea with adding the 12 spaces, changing it, and putting that handicap space towards the front door. I really like the idea of the handicap space being by the front door rather than having to have someone who's handicapped to have to walk all the way around. So I do hope that we can work on that, because that is a much better location for that space.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else? Nothing from the board? Anything from the audience? Wishes to address? Come forward if you would. And just give us your name.
John Castanoli.
John.
So first off, I'm all for it. I think it's a great, could be a great thing for the village and the residents. But I'm concerned about the parking. So is this that first? So the human nature is they're going to be parking in front of the residents, and I'm a little bit just north of the center. I know that property, the gravel lot, I just don't understand why that's not becoming a spot just to park in improvements made to that, if they can. I believe that's where, at Frontier Days, that's where they park.
It's a Park District property, right, Charles?
Yes, it's owned by the Park District. We did look at that as an idea for down the road, but again, most people will want to park as close to the building as they can. That's why we focused on, can we get some on-street parking right in front of the front door on Belmont, and is there a more efficient way to pick up parking on the site itself?
Right. I think that is an option, as Mr. Perkins indicated, for down the road, and I think this will be an evolving process once we go forward, and we'll certainly be sensitive to the concerns of the neighboring residents as we go forward to address any parking concerns or traffic concerns. And hopefully it'll be a problem that we will have to address, and we will address it if the time comes.
Okay. I mean, I do think it'll be successful. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but it's going to affect the residents that are directly
We hear you, and we understand that, and I think we've got some thoughts about how to address that if the time comes, and I know we'll work together with the library and the Park District and all stakeholders to address the concerns as they come to light.
So why couldn't something be worked out with the Park District now for that gravel lot ahead of this?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't want to speak for them. I think we don't want to, Mr. Recklaus?
I was going to say, I don't know if Mr. Driscoll wants to comment on that.
I just want to state that we have talked with the Park District, and they are in favor of working with us on that parking lot, the gravel lot, for further development if needed. We kind of wanted to see what the capacity of the building, or the parking around the building, how that worked out first before stepping in. But the Park District has been very willing to work with us on that. So.
And do the Park District owns, I believe, those homes that are just south of that parking lot, is that correct?
They own homes just north of the gas station on the east side, yes.
So, and so where that gravel lot is, there's a house right next to those?
The gravel lot is just north of those two homes, I think.
Yeah, so they do own all those homes. Basically, they own all the way up from the gravel lot all the way to the gas station.
Correct.
So, I mean, it looks like there could be, they already park in that lot already now, so I just think something should be worked out ahead of time than kicking the ball down the road till it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, once it's there, it's hard to take things back. You guys I've heard that, I think today, talked about a precedent set already. If we don't figure out the parking beforehand, it's going to be a little more difficult.
Mayor, yeah. Trustee Scaletta.
So and I appreciate what you're saying, and that's why this board and staff urge the library to continue to have meetings with the neighborhood to make sure that they understand exactly what's going on. We don't have a plan of what the build out of inside that building will be to determine what the need of the parking is going to be, to then say this is what we feel comfortable with. So right now there's an idea of, of what they're planning on putting in there, but there's no plans. So you can't figure out how many people we believe would be in that building based on a set of plans to say, okay, this is what your parking needs are going to be, so that we can then figure out where they're going to park. But I agree with you. I think that there's plenty of opportunity in that area. And, Mr. Recklouse and I have talked many, many times that what we don't want is we don't want the library to have a negative impact. It should only be a positive impact to the community of having people just parking all over the place, because, if you lived north of Belmont and have always enjoyed being able to come home and no one's parked in front of your home, and now every time you come home, someone's parked in front of your home, gonna be a little bit frustrating.
And we do have people parking. We have the pool, there's a lot of events, so we do, and we enjoy that. That's where we live. But this will be a whole nother level.
Agreed.
And they did on their previous presentations we've gone to, and again, every time I see it, think, wow, this is, I just wish it wasn't right next door to my house.
And let's not forget, if you look at the agreement that we're about to approve, I think, you'll see that, the village didn't just give the building away and we're done. We still have a stake in the building, for many, many years, because we want to make sure that it's done right as well. And if not, then we want to retain ownership.
Okay. They did talk about, though, they do have an idea of how many people are going to be in the center.
Yeah,
So-
it's very preliminary, yeah.
But they have mentioned, it's talked about 50 or so.
Perhaps, yeah.
So they do have some level, and 50, which could potentially be 50 cars or.
So and just one last comment and I'll be done. If we were to push this right now and say, this is what we think you need to do for these 50 people, and then they lay out the building and it can house 75, we're going right back to the beginning again. I completely can appreciate your position, but that's putting the cart before the horse, because what I don't want to do is make a bad decision just so that we make a decision so that you feel a little bit more comfortable sleeping at night. That's going to be a bad decision down the road, because all of a sudden they can fit more people in the building, and you're like, well, why didn't you just wait until they gave you the final plans? That's all I have to say.
Mr. Ecklouse.
One thing I was going to say, hopefully put your mind at ease, one of the differences between this sort of arrangement and when versus when you have a private entity is that, we kind of front load all our regulations when we regulate a private entity, because once they're released to do their work, we don't have any more buttons we can push to, change their project. But here, when you've got a village, a park district, and a library, we're all forever accountable to the residents. Not just at this particular moment, like with the private development before we hand out a permit, but if something is happening at that facility that the residents are unhappy about, you always can pick up I don't want to put them on the spot, but you can always pick up the phone and call Mr. Driscoll or myself, and we're always going to take that phone call and have to be responsive to it.
Yeah, no, I believe it's a lot more people from the village would be happy with this.
Yeah.
Because they can park close, which
Sure.
would be in front of a few residents, just a minor amount of residents that are in the area, but I don't know if you understand what
I do, and I think that the question is whether, if we're certainly not going to take parking off the street that's in existence already, and I think there's a belief when we've looked at this that the first spaces they're going to fill up are the ones, on the site, and then the ones that are closest to it. And then if we find that those spaces aren't adequate, then I think, as we've discussed, the library's going to have to kind of go forward and complete that agreement that they have with the Park District. And the Park District, as I understand, it's been very open to working with them, and that'll be, the next phase. And, we'll continue to monitor this. But certainly there is going to be some on-street parking, as a component of this for sure.
And on that note, if we were a private business, and I opened it up and I said I have 50 people in my building, you wouldn't give me the approval without first figuring out my parking situation.
We may come to the conclusion that the on-street parking is sufficient at that time. It'd be a little bit different because you require a change in zoning, whereas this is zoned already for this type of use. If it was a private business, we would have to rezone the property, and it would be a much, they don't have as many rights as the library does to use this property in this manner, because it's not zoned for that use, whereas it is zoned for this type of use currently.
Go ahead, Mr. Driscoll.
I just want to specify, reiterate that the library does want to be a good community neighbor in that community. And of course, the residents surrounding that building would be welcome to come to one of our board meetings and continue the conversation about parking after we've kicked off this project. So.
Yeah, and I believe you guys. I
Sure.
totally believe, I just want to figure, I've always, let's not worry about, as I've heard, more, if the parking becomes a problem, then we'll go to the park district. I almost would like to see something worked out to have something worked out ahead of time. And then if it becomes a problem, yeah, we already have an agreement with them that we could put parking there. It's just, it seems simple to me on that, but,
We're weighing the costs
Yeah.
also, the
Okay.
cost to build out that lot. Wouldn't be cheap, so we want to make sure that it's really required before doing that.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience on this issue? We have a motion and a second. A roll call is necessary.
Excuse me, Tom, I have one more
Trustee
question.
Sidor.
I'm sorry. So along the lines of being a good neighbor, Charles and Mike, when you're, if this is approved and when you go to construction, will this be fenced? Just, we reassure the neighbors, what time, build out starts? Are you gutting the whole place? Just kind of give us an overview of the mess before it becomes this beautiful makerspace.
Sure. We would update or make changes to the parking lot. That would probably be the biggest construction outside. We'd also replace the roof membrane and replace some of the HVAC equipment. On the inside, as far as construction goes, it would be flooring, paint, possibly some windows, and moving some walls around, stuff like that.
So do you anticipate your contractors to be able to park on site during construction and stage everything on site?
Yes.
I know you don't have the final plans yet, but.
Right.
And Charles, this wouldn't require a fence around the site for safety?
Not unless there's any open excavation.
Okay.
Just the small parking lot changes wouldn't trigger that.
Okay. Just wanted the neighbors to know what they could expect during the construction.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
If nothing further, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract or the resolution conveying the interest in property and authorizing the execution of a real estate contract. Roll call.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Padavani?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg?
Yes.
Trustee Blackwood?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Baldino?
Yes.
Trustee Sidor?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Well, good luck as you move forward with this very exciting project for the village. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right, we move on the agenda. Report of the village manager, Mr. Recklouse.
I just had one item this evening. As we're talking about downtown construction, I just wanted to make sure the folks at home are aware of all the different ways that they can stay in the loop on these projects. If you go on our website, vah.com, and right below the banner picture, there's an icon that says Downtown Construction Projects. It's on the left-hand side. If you click on that, you'll be getting continual updates on where things are at with that project. Currently, there's just kind of a static explanation, but once we get underway, we'll be describing each one and what's going on almost a daily basis. And you can also, at the bottom of that page, sign up for email updates that will likely be just about daily as well, and you can check that out. So yeah, if you click right on the home page, go up to the icon at the top left, click there, and then scroll down. Right there, downtown construction projects, and we realize this is important for business owners and residents, and our downtown will certainly be open for business during construction, but we want to make sure people understand what's coming.
Okay, thank you for that. Under petitions and communications, well, today is April Fool's Day, but tomorrow it's back to reality, and we have a very important day tomorrow. It's municipal elections, and we do have a couple of contested elections here in the village, including for the village board. And so I would just very much encourage all of our registered voters to get out and vote. I think it's going to be a nice day tomorrow. So please exercise your right to vote. These are very important decisions to be made, and it's your decision to make in terms of who is going to represent you in these local elected offices. So we very much encourage you all to exercise your right to vote tomorrow. Anything further from the village board? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By
Second.
Trustee Baldino, seconded by Trustee Scaletta. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all for joining us tonight.